Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 minutes or 40 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. And I promise we're going to change that intro very soon.
We are next week, in fact.
I'm Trudy J, and I'm here with Shah Barrett.
Hi there.
Wendy Vella.
Hello.
And Cheryl Phipps.
Hiya.
Hello. I'm
Energy,
the only one waving.
Yay!
Yeah, I was the only one excited and waving. You guys
we're excited. We're excited.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized we're in November. How's that?
Let's not talk about
How's
that.
that for a sudden realization?
You just realized on the 11th of November that we're in
I know.
November.
Well, I was looking at 11/11 and I was like, wow.
I just wandered off and looked out my window, which is the most beautiful scenery on a gorgeous day. So happy Thursday.
Yeah.
or whatever day it is, wherever you are when you
exactly.
Exactly. So I feel like it's been a while since we did just a Spa Girls episode. So I'm excited to speak to you guys and not be like kind of random, like not
on our best behavior.
Yeah, on our best behavior, and also taking notes and trying to listen really hard. And not that I ever listen to you guys. So
and sound intelligent.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, it's so hard to try and sound intelligent.
All those things.
So anyway, you just got us today, and we are talking. So there's a quote from Brene Brown that we all quite like, and we sort of are using that as a jumping off point to talk about how to step up as an author or step into the arena, or just get going, just get started, just do something rather than kind of hiding on the edges and worrying about making mistakes or that you don't know enough or whatever. So shall I start by reading the quote?
So just to clarify, it's not for she uses it as a jumping off point for her books, doesn't she, or for her research?
Yeah, it's actually a Theodore Roosevelt quote, and then she read this quote when she was starting to do her research, which is a lot of stuff into vulnerability and kind of all that kind of thing. I'll just read it, and then so it starts off with the critic is not the person who counts. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who comes out short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends herself or himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Oh, don't you get chills? I just love that. I love the cold and timid souls. Like that's, the people who are not making those decisions to get in the ring, and then the blood and the sweat and the dust and I just find that really, I don't know, I connect to that quite a lot.
Yes.
I liked one of her simple ones, which was courage over comfort. And I think that kind of says it all. It says it all for me anyway.
She's massively about getting in the arena, right? It's all about it's all very well to stand on the sidelines and criticize or not do that, but you can't move forward with what your chosen career or plan or whatever it is if you're not actually in the arena. And that's what I love about here. Basically, like she says, if you're not getting your ass kicked, don't come to me don't come to me with your feedback, because I'm not interested. So it's all about, and I think the four of us, when we started this podcast, a massive part of that was for us overcoming that fear that what are we doing? How do we do it?
Yeah.
Well, I think like with us,
who are we to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. All of us felt that. And I mean, I think it did help. But basically, we all linked hands and then jumped in together into the sweaty and bloody arena, which definitely helped. But it's the even 5 years onwards, or even coming up 6 actually, the feeling of imposter doesn't always go away. So I think that's, so
you're kind of you're resubmitting yourself into that arena constantly, like it doesn't that's
I'm not sure. And I've seen a lot of authors talk about they're they're never particularly comfortable in the arena, you know.
No.
You don't actually, I mean, there'll be times when they're more comfortable than others, but I don't think you ever get to the point where you're kind of strutting around like, you know, I've got
This is
this
amazing.
totally.
I've got this.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point, right? So a lot of people, maybe when you're beginning, like, you know, you're looking to these other authors as you're kind of like, I want to be like that person, and you watch them and it seems so effortless to them, and it seems like they know what they're doing, and they must have it easy when they're, you know, they've got all those books and they know what they're doing, when actually they're probably having to step up and get in the arena just as much as a beginner writer just starting out. And it's just about having that courage over comfort that Cheryl talked about, like just stepping out and getting yourself out there into the arena again and again.
I think we're too worried about what qualifies us to do what we do, or to say what we want to say, or to offer advice or help, because, you know, like, as we've said, who are we? And then you think of the things that we've gone through, and we have fallen down and got up again, and, you know, like over and over again. So I think that kind of qualifies any author or any writer to put themselves forward and say, well, at least I've tried this. I've done this, and then hopefully, and certainly we have achieved this. So, you know, I think that's...
And I think it's about the steps for learning how to step into the arena too, you know, like, I mean, I think for me, there are so many things that I've just like put off. And I always go back to Cher and I learning something as basic as formatting, you know, like we put it off, we put it aside, we bought the format because neither of us felt we could do it. And I think what I've learned over the last however many years is actually just to jump. You don't actually have to know everything about it. And that works for me because I'm not a massive researcher. So if I know a little bit about it, enough to jump and then learn as I go, that's how it's been working for me. And I think that you've sort of got to find the courage to think, well, you can only read so much, you can only learn so much, you can only understand so much. Eventually it comes down to you, and you've got to step into the arena and do it.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful. It's like, just get into in the arena, and that's true. And I find that too. Like I would class myself as someone who likes to do a bit of research, and I like learning, but actually the times where I get to the point where I'm like, no, I don't know how to do this, and I can't, and I just go, no, I just have to take that first step. I just have to remind myself that I won't understand it, I won't know it. This happens a lot with me with technology. Like I'm quite resistant to kind of new technologies, and I just know from past experience, once I get into it a little bit, then I'll understand a bit more, and then I'll get into it a little bit more, and then I'll understand it, and then it'll get to a point where it's easy, but it's never easy at the beginning. No. It's never, and you just have to kind of
or anything at all. Starting a new series, writing the 10th book in a series, you know, it's a terrifying thing, and you wait for that moment when it's not going to be terrifying. You know, like that, but I wonder sometimes if you haven't got that small amount of fear, and you're not living with that small amount of fear, if it's going to be a great success. My daughter's got this thing that she says to me, the day you come to me and you tell me this book's going well and it's not going to be bad and it's not going to be this, he said it's going to be a terrible book, she said. You know, so
I think
that's a process. That's rather than, you know, like,
but exactly. But it's still, I have the fear in my head always that, you know.
And how many times do you hear of performers that still get stage fright, or still get those anxiety tingles, or the excitement as Mel Robbins often talks about reframing instead of nervousness. It's excitement, because often physiologically it feels the same. But the very few people, even like I say, even performers, will still talk about getting those feelings of stage fright or excitement before they go and perform, even after years and years and years and years and years. And I think
there's adrenaline, isn't there, association with that. It's kind of like kicks in and kind of almost makes you perform better when you're nervous. Versus if you're bland and you feel nothing, then that's almost.
And how many also times have we heard about authors that have said the books that they've sweated over and hated, after a few years they think back and they're not quite sure which book it was, but readers have responded really well to it, just the same as one that they thought was amazing kind of thing. You know, it's like, that is part of the process, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the output is reflects that trauma and drama to get to that point.
What I find really heartening about the whole business of this fair and that is that even though we're all so different and we'll all have different triggers, in essence we're all the same, because we do have this fear of imposter syndrome and self-doubt at times. But you know, on the other side of that is the joy when something comes off. You know, when you've struggled and you've repeatedly tried something and it hasn't worked, and then you do something a little different and it does. And I mean, there is joy to be found, and you
Absolutely.
just have to actually jump in to find it.
And nothing
part-
you go, Treadles.
I was going to say, part of what that quote was that I read out earlier was it's not just about the final outcome, it's about the journey of it, like the striving and the pushing up against things, and the taking the courage to actually step into the arena versus not. Like there's actually something in the act of taking the courage and getting out there and doing it that's actually almost as satisfying as actually achieving something in the end.
And understanding you may fail.
Yeah. But also kind of saying, I think if you've struggled, or not struggled so much as if you've had courage and you've worked hard and it's taken time and then you achieve it, it almost feels more satisfying than if it came really easily. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it quite, but yeah.
Environment has a lot to do with it as well. And so far as the people around you, you know, like I like to nut things off with people. And if someone says to me, oh, I don't know about that, instantly I'm like, no, okay, I'll take a step back from that. You know, it's like, I think that takes a lot of courage to step into the arena, to overcome those voices and those people and those negative doubts around you and the time constraints and all the other things that you're doing. To overcome all of that and then step in and go, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to conquer it, when someone's who you respect and love has told you no, that's quite hard too. It's all part of it, you know, it's all part of it. We're not just sitting here every day on our own without all this other crap going on around us. So that's another force that's holding us back.
And I also think as women too, we are often guilty of second guessing ourselves more so than perhaps our male counterparts. I think often I don't know, I just feel like female authors are often more cautious or kind of about putting themselves out there many times, you know, going for it or declaring their success, if you like, publicly, as opposed to men, because I think, you know, it's one of those, and I'm hoping it's going with younger generations, but for those of us Gen Xers, I think a lot of us can relate to that, you know, it was still that you're a bit big-headed if you kind of talked about what you did well.
Although having you say that, but I just attended RAM, Romance Author Mastermind, this weekend, and it is basically a celebration of a whole bunch of female authors who are rocking it. And there are, maybe there were men attending there, but I mean, it is all about romance, and it tends to be primarily female authors, and they were just, you know, talking about their successes, and they were telling each other how they were doing, and they were networking, they were connecting, and it was all so positive and uplifting, and also kind of awesome, like people kind of staking a claim that's cool. But I guess it's in that environment, right? Like you when
we find that
they've done the hard yards to get to even that level. So it's not like they just became these empowered women, you know, they still had to do the hard stuff.
Absolutely.
You know?
And a lot of them, when we were there in person, in the heady days of 2019, remember then, actually, and ironically, probably 2 years today, when we're recording this, we would have been there, but they also speak to the vulnerability, and it wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of strength, I think, too. You know, they were vulnerable in their sharing, but it was incredibly empowering as well, to their unashamedly celebration of success. But can I just point out that that was a female-led conference run by a female, and I haven't seen too much of that in other writing conferences.
But universally, it is acknowledged that that is one of the best conferences out there.
Absolutely.
Of all the different conferences. So it might just be a female-led one, or not just, but it might be within that kind of environment, but it is out in the wider world acknowledged to be one of the best conferences for writers. So I think, yeah, we can take something positive from that. But anyway, we're kind of getting off track here. But I just the one thing that I did get was that they were talking about mistakes as well, like saying, oh, this is the thing I did, but then I learned from it, and this is how and that's been something I've had to work on a lot. Like the desire to always be right, and a dislike of being wrong, or not wanting to be wrong, so kind of holding myself back from doing things in case I came out wrong, like there was this fear of making mistakes, and I'd always heard the adage, oh, you have to fail forward, and you have to have failures of like how you learn, and making mistakes is vital. And I kind of knew that on an intellectual level, you kind of go, oh yeah, sure, but I still didn't want to do that. Versus now I've kind of realized you actually do have to make the mistakes, because you can't not make mistakes. And by putting yourself into the arena, about getting out there and kind of making yourself vulnerable, that's how you learn. That's how you get ahead. That's how you're gonna.
I don't think it's easy for anyone to hear about the necessity to fail. It just is. It just is one of the things that has to happen, but none of us want it. It's not like you're going to encourage it, but you certainly have to expect it to happen, I think, at some stage with any learning, because until you do something the wrong way, you don't know how to do it the right way for you or for whatever you're doing.
And it makes you stronger.
I actually think when you say none of us want it, there's certain circles where they talk about actually you should want it. You should kind of encourage the failure. You should be excited about that, because that's going to be how you're going to move forward. And so
human nature says
like holding yourself back because you don't want to fail. But maybe it's the wrong word. Maybe failure is kind of got too many kind of emotional attachments to it. Maybe it's just I don't know, you should talk about learning curves or something like that, it's a stop on the learning curve or something, that this thing is what I learned to help me move forward, or whatever. Like, it's failure has these kind of
a little stumble. It's not the end of the world. Don't throw away the book.
it's a courage marker or something like that. Like, it's turning it around and make it into something, the same thing becomes something more positive, rather than it being a horrifying, terrible moment.
Have you got a memory? Have you got anything that you've done lately that you had to step off the arena for?
Oh God, Facebook Lives. Oh my gosh.
Because you do those every week, eh?
Yeah, I've been doing them every week in my Facebook group. And it's literally like talking to myself, because it's not like anyone comes live to my Facebook Lives, but it's just, that wasn't about me trying to, it is about me trying to engage with readers, but it's also about me stepping up and trying to kind of step into the arena and say, look, I can do this. And it's the same when we started the podcast. It's that whole lesson of, like, our early podcasts were terrible. Like, we didn't know what we were doing, but we did it anyway, and we got in there, and now we can kind of put together an episode, and hopefully it's okay, and we're getting more and more listeners, so I'm assuming it is, kind of thing.
And we look at those first ones as being our bloopers, or
like, that's just where we had to start, and
our apprenticeship.
And at the time we did our very best, though, to be fair. At the time we weren't like dialing it in, we were well prepared, over prepared.
It's not
so
that
that's just a natural growth, isn't it?
It's a progression. And same with my Facebook Lives. I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to do it in my group to start off with. I'm going to get comfortable with it. I'm going to do, my first one was awful, and I was really awkward and weird, and then the next one was a little bit better, and the next one was better, and now I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to do them on my Facebook page. And the thought is terrifying to me again, but I kind of know that that's going to be the next step for me. And it's all about being more visible and showing up as an author and all those kinds of things. But that is, quite frankly, the most terrifying thing to me. It's like being visible and showing up and kind of actually
talking to a void, and no one's replying. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the likelihood is that, depending on your energy, some of those episodes will be better than others. Right? The content that you have might be really great for that week. You had something that you really wanted to share, and I think that's the same for writing, isn't it? Some days it's just a piece of cake, and other days it's like walking through quicksand. But you gotta go get in there.
Keep moving forward. Keep not worried about making mistakes. Just keep stepping into the arena and turning up.
And well, I've sort of been, well, it's more of a fun thing than I'm using it as an author platform, because I'm just learning it. So there's so much, like some people are brilliant at it and maybe you should be doing it this way and that way. And the other, I was just like, what the hell? I'm just going to dive in. I'm not a dancer or a singer. I don't jig or jog. And so it's more, if I feel something's going to work. I did my garden the other day.
Yeah.
Like it's I mean, there's these people saying, oh, you want to go viral, you want to do this, you want to do that. And to me, it's like, actually, no, I'm just at the moment just building and having fun. And if it works, it works. It doesn't. But for me to step off the platform and actually do a video of myself and put it out there, even though I'm on the podcast every week and I've been interviewed before, et cetera, this was different again. It was another step again. And it was, you're putting yourself onto a platform where there's a lot of people, where a lot of young people that are doing really cool things and, and stuff like that. And I'm not young doing cool things. But anyway, I did it.
Doing cool things, Wendy.
Yeah, no, but it was okay, and I've got two kids and two kids-in-laws that are hilarious. I think it's the most hilarious thing that ever happened in my life that I'm on TikTok.
But you can use your family.
Yeah, it's my goal in life to make them laugh. But so it was for me. I'm someone who doesn't do, I just stepped into it.
Yeah,
without all the learning, which is probably
awesome.
the wrong way around to be.
I don't think so.
Just go for it. And
and I think TikTok is also about the raw and the unedited. And so there you go. You just it's very brave, and it's also courageous, as Cheryl was quoting before about courage over comfort. And you're not comfortable doing it necessarily at the moment, but it is courageous that you're doing it.
I don't know, it's fun. So many aspects of my writing day are some things I have to do, things that must be done to go forward and to write books and rah. This is not that. This is fun now, creating things, or I'm not saying the videos are fun, but when I'm doing videos that I'm not in, they're great fun. So it's a bit of fun.
So there you go. So I never thought that 5 years ago even that you would be into doing something like that. So
I remember the fuss. I know we talk about this all the time, but the fuss you made over Twitter, like, oh my God. And now here we are without any encouragement, I might add, from the rest of us, stepping into TikTok. Yeah, exactly. So funny that we had to kind of push you, and now you're kind of taking the leap on your own.
But I think maybe that's the key too, is keeping it fun and taking the pressure off a little bit in order for you to step into that arena too. Is that just the stepping in is enough pressure. So try and add something to that of the fun aspect or the expressive aspect of it or the creativity. We're not talking that you have to be, whipping yourself, self-flagellating yourself in order to deserve something,
We're actually talking about something that's supposed to be joyous for us, right? We're talking about actually a writing career. So it's, if you're doing it and it's all awful and you hate it all, then you need to stop doing it and stop doing what you're doing and look for ways to make that better.
It's stepping into the arena your way.
And
that is
as not
exactly
not a good thing. It can never
because what works for Cheryl might not work for me, what works for Trudy might not work for me. But so stepping into the arena because someone else is telling you how to do something and you're doing it, that sure, take all the advice you need, but the bottom line is it's got to be you stepping into the arena, you doing it, so you find your way to do it, your courage, your strength, your path and your journey,
your way.
It's different. We're all different. All four of us are very different. My way's best, but they haven't learned that yet.
Like clearly. One interesting thing though on that point, and it's a distinction I'm not always that amazing at getting, but I am trying, is this idea of there'll be certain things you resist doing, like because you're scared of it and you don't want to do it, and you think it's and you're scared of it because of some old story about how you're not good enough or you're not worthy or there's something there, versus not doing it because it's not the right thing for you. And I think there's a distinction to be made. So be honest with yourself when you're saying, okay, I'm not gonna approach this other author because it's horrible and the idea of it's terrible, when actually maybe it's it's your fear of being rejected that's causing you to do it. You kind of have to step, go towards the things you resist when there's something, a fear around them, and that's courageous, versus the things that are not right for you. Like, don't do something that's going to, cause you to fall into a deep depression and never write again. Like these are.
Well, they are relevant fears, aren't they? Like, like jumping into different ads or promotions, or, like me just starting out with audio. Don't do things that you can't afford, that are going to put you into financial difficulty, which is just going to smash you to pieces. Don't do things like that, but maybe find a way to do smaller things on smaller scales. And, but try something, do something.
Yeah. It's not always about spending lots of money.
No.
It's about pushing your boundaries and pushing yourself into doing things that you would otherwise resist. Yeah.
It's okay to fail, but don't set yourself up to fail.
No.
If that makes sense. Failure is part of life, and it's definitely part of this business. But going in grand and setting yourself up to fail is probably not going to help you in the long term, I wouldn't have thought.
And so what are some positive things that we've had? So if we've failed at something and then something positive has come out of it, like, is there something that anyone?
I always go back to that same old thing, and I think you've heard this story before. I failed, the agent and editor didn't want my series, and it's my best-selling series.
And it seemed like a big failure at the time. Like,
it was
massive. Gutted. You gave them like all these different books, and they said no to them. And then that was the thing that actually propels you into self-publishing. And now look at you, you're a rock star of self-publishing. So none of that would have happened if they had said, oh yeah, sure, come and give us your book and we'll make you $2,000 a year from it. Like.
And how many times have we heard that? Like, with not taking away from Wendy's example, but boy, we've literally heard dozens of that exact same example from guests that we've had on this podcast that have said that, and it's very often been a traditional or an editor or something along those lines that has been a failure at first hand, a hurdle, shall we say, that they've stumbled over.
It can derail you.
Yeah, absolutely it can. And
it could have derailed me easily. I could have just gone, well, that's it, I'm done. One book wonder,
and I think for a lot of people starting off too, that it's very difficult, as we've talked about before. The first book, you have a lot of hopes and dreams behind that, and it's one thing for us to say, chances are that's probably not going to be your bestseller right from out of the gate. But it's another thing to actually live that, it's another thing to actually, because you want to think that you're the person that's the exception to the rule, and there's, more power to you. But so how do you pick yourself up when you've stumbled a bit in the arena? How do you kind of?
I think you take the emotion away from it. Like, if you stumble, you have something that seems like a massive failure, look at it as data. Look at it as information, and kind of say to yourself, how can I use this to what do I need to do to make this work? Like, like if you get a book and it flops, so look at it without the emotion, without the kind of, oh my God, it's my book, baby, and just go, okay, so what did I do that was different to other series, if you've got other series, or what do I think that I could do better about this, and try it again, and find or talk to other people and ask them if they have feedback for you, because that's been a big thing about this year for me too, is taking feedback. And I've had a lot more feedback than I ever have before on my series, and I've made changes to stuff because of that feedback. And it's been amazing. Like, I had a series.
You're going to have the initial pushback, aren't you? Because that's human nature. You don't actually want to hear criticism. But if you open yourself up to it, what you might find is actually a way out of it, a way forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm going to be really open about it, it's like my series that I wrote, and it wasn't selling as well as the series prior to that, and I was like, well, I don't get it. Like, I feel like my writing's improved, and I love this character, and then I got this feedback saying, well, actually they didn't feel connected to her, and I had to go back and try and figure out why that was. And now I've made changes to that series, and people are saying, oh my God, it's way better. It's like you've and all I did was add in motivation. Like I knew the motivation, but I hadn't made it clear in my books. Apparently I'm an underwriter, which means I don't add enough information in. But that's what I've learned this year, and that's something that I can take forward in new series and new books, and that's been amazing to me. But it was really hard to hear it at the beginning of the year.
I was going to say, that's very brave to put yourself in a position that you actually have to take to listen to that, you know.
Yeah, it's not easy, and you think you're doing your best, and yeah, but it's been a year of learning, right? And that's, yeah.
So
I think I'm a better writer.
Going back to what we're talking about, just in terms of if something's failed, I use the air quotes on that one. I think there's two things as well that can also help deal with it. Like Trudy said, take the emotion out, and it kind of aligned to this is depersonalize it a little bit if you can. I think you know, you can write whatever stories you want. If you write a story that doesn't find its readers, or that the readers don't respond well to, it's very hard not to take that personally, because I think all of us put a little piece of ourselves in our writing, or bigger or littler. But you know, at the point where it becomes this is how I said it, the point where it becomes an exchange for time or money from somebody else with it is a product, and so they're not criticizing you, or they're not rejecting you necessarily. It's just that particular product, that particular story, that particular book didn't resonate with them, and that's quite a hard one, I think, to deal with. And the other one is, and I see this a lot, is the sunk cost fallacy, and I'm not going to explain it all here now, but look that up. And that's where perhaps you've got a number of books that are written, and maybe they're not quite reaching the market, or they're maybe straddling two genres, or they're just not quite. It's like a radio station that is slightly off. You know, in the old days, you had the dial to tune in the station, and I see some books, a lot of books actually, that they're not quite on the station. You can kind of hear the station, but it just needs a bit of tweaking to get rid of the static and to be a really clear signal. And I think I see a number of authors on forums, they're kind of, I don't like to use the phrase beating a dead horse, but
You just did.
I did. The books are not on the station, and throwing more energy and time and effort into trying to make them on the station isn't. Sometimes you've just got to move on and just really, and that's very difficult. And if you look at it, there's a whole lot of psychology around this, and it's called the sunk cost fallacy. So if you're struggling with that, look that up, because I think you might find it freeing.
Yeah, and that's a really great, I love that analogy of the radio station. Like that's awesome, because it's like there might, it's again back to the data thing. Like you kind of go, okay, so there's the cover. Okay, so is my cover working? Is the blurb? Is my blurb working? Is the first 30 pages, is that working to draw people in? And there's the rest of the book, is that working? Is and characters, have I got them? You know, like these, and you can actually split that up and kind of look at each area. And it might not be that the whole everything is wrong. It might be just that one area is wrong. Like maybe if you tweaked your blurb a little bit more, and your description, I mean by blurb I mean your description on Amazon, that might be something. Like I heard an author speaking at the weekend on at RAM, and she said, you know, she had a book that didn't do as well as the others had in the rest of her series, and she tweaked the blurb, and suddenly wham, she realized that she'd emphasized one aspect of the story over another, and that was all it took to kind of amp it up. So it's just, and I think that's almost maybe having confidence in your own ability to kind of work with that. Like maybe it's a fear thing, not wanting to face that, and kind of saying to yourself, oh, it's just dumb luck that person is doing better than me, and it's just this, and kind of,
it's a mental shift.
Yeah, and it is. It's a big mental shift, and kind of going, actually, other people are doing it. I can do it too. What are the, you know, break it down a little, get the data and figure it out, and keep stepping into the arena and keep making it happen.
That's it. And you're in the arena to start with. You stepped off and got in the arena, so be incredibly proud of that. And just say, okay, well, what's the next step? This is not working. I've actually jumped off and I've published my book. So, okay, something needs tweaking, or something needs working, or it needs to go. I need to go on to the next book. But be very proud of the fact that you have stepped into the arena, and a lot of people haven't.
So true.
It's not failure. It's just you step into the right, or you step into the left, or you've learned something, but you're there. You know, a lot of people don't get that book up there. Don't get that.
Most people
there.
don't.
Exactly. So be proud. Don't see it. It's just another stepping stone. Yes, you may be failing with this book, but maybe you won't with the next. What I'm trying to say is be proud of yourself for being there.
Yeah.
Don't spend hours and hours like making up spreadsheets to
No.
try and figure all of this out. All you need to do is just write down the things that you think you could change that may make a difference and work your way through it. And, you know, who knows? It could be, you know, the best thing you've ever done.
Don't overcomplicate.
Yeah. I mean, I know from personal experience, it's not, because we're so close to our books, it's really hard to sort of see what that might be. So maybe it's also a matter of kind of creating a network of other people around you who could maybe help with that. I don't know. It's sort of hard. And you've got to have people you trust and people that you understand where they're coming from and what kind of information they're giving you. Like I always have this thing where it's like, if I give it to another writer, I know that they'll give me a certain perspective versus a different perspective that I might get from a reader who's just reads it, versus someone who doesn't read in your genre versus someone who does. You know, those are very different people. So knowing where you're getting that feedback from too, I guess, as well. But.
And sometimes the best thing you could do is think, you know what, I'll come back to that at another point in time when I maybe got a bit more experience or whatever, and just take like Wendy said, a big step forward without actually knowing quite what it was, because often it will reveal itself later on, you know. But I think that's a tricky one, and it's something that I think a lot of writers face.
I think you're quite right as well, to maybe distance yourself from the emotion of it. You know, when something doesn't go the way you want, you know, it's like a knee-jerk reaction to just, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater, or you know,
or defend it.
You
know, hang on, I write way better than XYZ author. You know,
I was just showing them a sticky note that was on my thing, but it's back to
Hold
front, isn't it?
No, it's good for us.
It says, don't
give failure power.
There you go. Isn't that the thing that we're talking about, you know? Because if you give it the power and you back away from it, then, you know, then you're harming yourself. You want to move forward. Okay, so maybe you failed slightly in one thing, then move forward and just embrace it and go, okay, what have I learned from it? I think that's the key.
It's very similar to when you went down the drive with no brakes, Wendy. That was a failure, a brake failure, and you learn from it.
Yes, I had a wee incident. I hadn't been on my bike for a while, and because I didn't want to get on my bike because there's too many cars on the road and I might get knocked off. And my husband said, come on, stop being a coward, get moving. And so we got out, and I said, I'm going to walk down the driveway. He said, no, it's not that steep. It's steep. But, you know, you'll be fine, baby. You know what you're doing. So I got on, pumped my brakes, pumped them again, nothing. Shot down the road, across the road, over the neighbours, up the neighbour's driveway and onto the grass, screaming.
Thankfully, there was no cars coming on the road.
He was right about that.
Was the air blue, or was it just, just a long scream, a long sound?
I just went, my brakes don't work. I didn't say it. I just went, F, my brakes don't work. And then, yeah. And so then he's just like, you're all right, you're talking, let's go, sort of thing. So we off with him.
No, yeah, see, he knows you. He knows that you how to keep you motivated.
Best ride I've had too, by the way. It was brilliant.
Yeah. There you go.
Don't you love that when you kind of push yourself into doing something and then you go, oh my God, that was the best thing ever? Like,
yeah,
I often do that. Like, I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do this. And like we had that, and it's again not non-writing, but like a couple of times we went down skiing and I was all like, oh, it's a hassle and we have to get the dog into the kennel and oh, where are we going to stay, and oh, I don't really want to go, and oh, what if this time it doesn't work, and and then I'll get down there and have the best skiing day ever, like, and love it and just be so happy, and I'll be like, of course it was worth it. Like, what was happening, you know?
And you can have that with writing when you didn't get up that morning and feel particularly interested in writing a single word, and you blitz out 3,000 and you're like, I don't even know how that happened, because I got in the zone, the way I went, and that's the joy that you want to repeat over and over.
So true. That's so true.
That's that Mel Robbins thing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Like she says, just get up and
her one is not overthink. Basically, it's to stop the overthinking, and it's when you need to, you know that you should do something, but your brain quickly kicks in, usually after 5 seconds of telling all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, or that you don't need to start it, or that it's too difficult, or whatever. And it's a protective thing. It's just how we're designed. And the countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is designed to, launch
Disrupt
you, like
it.
literally, to disrupt that before you kick into that security mode. And isn't that true? That we're kind of designed to stay in the same place. We're designed to protect ourselves. And the act of creativity and of publishing and writing a book is actually very disruptive to that feeling, because it's a lot of uncomfortableness comes with that. So if you're thinking, why am I struggling with this, with regard, it doesn't matter at what point, whether it's the writing point or the marketing point, and you think you're the only one, trust us. Everybody feels like that at some aspect. And I think that's often something that can be glossed over when you're hearing writers speak, or certainly not in our podcast, but just maybe in a more general setting, or creatives. They tell you the high points, but they don't tell you all the second guessing and the overthinking and the stressing and the sleepless nights and the beating themselves up to get to that point. And so it's easy to think that you're the one that somehow
You're alone in the journey.
Yeah, you're alone, or that you're, too damaged to do it. Because everybody has it, I don't think we've spoken to one person that's like, I've got my
everything together,
stuff together right from day one.
Well, certainly not anyone in this room.
No. No. We're still learning right along with you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point too, because I think so. Here's a Spa Girls on the Couch thing. So Trudy's already talked about what she's done this year that was like scary. So now the rest of us need to go there.
I've already done mine.
What was yours? Oh, your TikTok.
Cycling and TikTok.
Cycling without
not
breaks.
dragging anything more out of me.
Okay, Cheryl.
Be funny to try.
Well, I guess I could say the marketing again, but I actually found the audio a little bit daunting as well, because I didn't really understand the process. So I think in that respect, research is a good thing, but not to the extent of like turning you off it,
Yeah.
Like there's lots of things you have to think about, and like money being the first object, obviously, but finding the right people. Like, what if they do a bad job? What if they realize it?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was our talk at Romance Runners in New Zealand. It was the public speaking aspect I find terrifying, and just so.
And that's interesting, because I was terrified before that too, and I'm but we've kind of gotten used to doing the podcast, and I'm only nervous if we have a guest that I'm kind of, I don't know, that I'm in awe of or something, and sometimes that happens. I get all girly, but we
do being all giggly and chatty and
embarrassing. Anyway, but we all were recently interviewed on a separate arts show, and I found that terrifying. Like, it was because it was out of my control, and they were going to be asking me questions, and I had no kind of, like, on our podcast, I know what to expect, I know how it works, and generally we're the one asking guests questions.
You're in charge.
I'm in charge.
Like to be in charge. And that says it all, right?
Control freaks.
But so I didn't find it daunting at all, because I've met Stephen already, but the host of the show. But to me, it was just like chatting with a friend, which is how I hope our podcast is for our listeners.
I was just worried I'd say something stupid or something I didn't mean to say.
I'm sure you
about Trudy.
And on that note, seeing as we're rambling now.
Yeah. It is, but isn't that true? I think it is. Again, just in this conversation, it's different triggers for different people as well. But you can still relate to how they're feeling, even if you don't personally experience it. And so, I just encourage you to be vulnerable with other writers. I think it's good to talk about these things, and sometimes it just needs somebody to actually be like that, and you don't have to do it, in a live Facebook Live sort of thing. But, sometimes if you're feeling a particular way and you express it, you'll be amazed by the support. And I have seen it on different forums and things. People are like, oh, that's so me. And it can be very, very
uplifting.
Yeah, it can be quite empowering to feel to experience the same thing.
But I think you have to, you have to be brave and understand that you will fail.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's going to be a continuing failure, and you may learn from that failure and move forward to success, and you probably will. But unless you step into that arena, you're not going to experience any of that.
Yeah. So here's to stepping into the arena.
Yeah, make sure that's what you do. Stop listening to this podcast right now and go step into the arena
with our sexy togas on.
Yes,
I
only
picture
togas
the
allowed.
arena as only
togas.
Who's a toga? Is that like an ogre? Oh,
No,
toga
a
is
toga.
Oh, yeah.
Did you not do toga parties in your youth?
No, it's just the way you pronounce that. I didn't get it.
You didn't do toga parties in your youth.
Anyway, I suggest we wrap this up.
Yeah, I think we should do.
Anyway.
We're done.
Thank you all for putting up with us for another episode of the
Come
Spa
and
Girls
step
podcast.
into our arena. Come step into our arena on
Believe
Facebook
it
and on YouTube.
Oh.
Actually, for collectively, that was our arena that we stepped into was YouTube. Because even though we had been recording on audio, it's a whole nother thing to
be live.
And come and see us at spargirls.com.
Yeah. Come see
Spa
our
Girls
face.
podcast.
Podcast.com. Yeah.
So
You'll get a whole different site if you go to spargirls.com.
Okay, it's deteriorating.
All right, so thank you for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We will be back again next week, same time, same place. No time, no place. That's a lie. But we will be back again, and we
try never to lie.
Yeah, we try never to lie, mostly, probably. But thank you all, and I'm going to go now. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.